We have a baseline presentation by Sandeep, okay? And I'll request Sandeep, I'm not going to spend too much time introducing him. Sandeep is an expert on cooling and refrigeration. He's part of Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy, AEEE, great organization. They do a lot of good work on energy efficiency. So I'm going to request Sandeep to make your opening baseline presentation. Thank you.
Hello everyone. A very good afternoon to all. I promise that I will keep my presentation very brief. So since we are talking about not-in-kind cooling technologies and they are emerging to replace the traditional air conditioning technologies, so it is important to uh, appreciate the fact that air conditioning is not just about thermal comfort. It also ensures the freshness of air. It ensures that the CO2 levels and other contaminants are under the acceptable thresholds, and it also and humidity. So there are a whole host of other environmental parameters that affect thermal comfort, vertical air temperature difference, mean radiant temperature asymmetry, floor surface temperature, airspeed, all of them have an impact on the human thermal comfort. And apart from these environmental parameters, there are two physiological personal parameters also that affect thermal comfort, which is the metabolic rate and the clothing level. And in addition to these environmental and physiological parameters, there are these three major adaptations that also have their own role to play: behavioral adaptation, psychological adaptation, and physiological adaptation. And I will touch upon the behavioral adaptation in my next slide. What physiological adaptation is basically acclimatization and even genetic adaptation to some extent. The psychological adaptation is change in the perceptions and expectations. And what all of these adaptations do is basically they increase the comfort bandwidth of people living in India if we compare ourselves to, say, people in the colder climates. Now, if we talk about strategies to improve thermal comfort while minimizing the environmental impacts, then these are the three. It can be summarized in this manner. These are, and we must have been discussing about these three things throughout this conference. It starts with climate responsive building design. It is all about shade, ventilate, and insulate. That's all it boils down to. And the building architect has the most important role to play here. Uh, then once we have taken care of reducing the heat ingress, integrated the passive measures, then we have already kind of reduced the cooling load, and now we can leverage the low energy cooling technologies, the innovative not-in-kind cooling technologies to do the job for us. And finally, the role of building occupants adaptation comes into picture, and with these uh, passive measures and the other building level interventions in place, the low energy cooling interventions in place, it creates more favorable opportunities for the behavioral adaptation to come into picture. For example, adjusting the window openings or switching on fans or adjusting thermostat set points and things like that. Now, what are the not-in-kind technologies? So, as Dr. Chandrabhushan also mentioned, they are essentially alternatives to the traditional vapor compression technology, and it could include the non-refrigerant based as well as natural refrigerant based technologies, which offer significant reductions in energy consumption and environmental impact. While some mature technologies have found their own niche, like the sorption technologies or the thermoelectric refrigeration, there lies huge untapped potential, which can potentially disrupt the current cooling industry in India. Now, this is a not-in-kind technologies classification as per the RTOC assessment of the Montreal Protocol. So they can be classified as widely commercially available if they are produced by more than one company, commercially available if it is produced at least by one company, emerging if they are undergoing R&D, if they have undergone R&D but are still not commercialized, a research and development phase if they are actively doing R&D but not yet fully established. There could be some other technologies having limited use and some special applications like deep sea or lake cooling, which is best done in a district cooling kind of setup. So you will see in the widely commercially available technology, a few technologies are highlighted gray. So essentially these are not part of the RTOC assessment. They are coming from our own reports. So structure cooling, radiant cooling, district cooling system, they find a mention in the India Cooling Action Plan, even the indirect direct evaporative cooling system, and earth air tunnel system, it finds a mention in the low energy cooling technologies in the National Building Code of India. And I'll not go into the details of all these technologies, and probably will hear more about some of them in the panel discussions that will follow. Now, some of the widely available not-in-kind technologies which have a lower operational life cycle cost than vapor compression include the absorption or adsorption fired by geothermal energy. It has a lower life cycle cost. Most of these technologies have a higher capex, but their operational cost, they are much lower than a traditional vapor compression technologies, and overall on a life cycle basis they will be much more economical. Then exhaust recovery, if available, coupled with an absorption or adsorption, is another widely available technology. Solar energy with absorption cooling is another huge technology. The only limitation here is the land area that is required to install the solar collectors. Then indirect direct evaporative cooling, already all of us must know about it. Then deep sea or lake cooling, there are like demonstrations of this technology as well, and as I said, this goes with district cooling kind of setup. Now, when we have to choose, when we talk about choosing the right refrigerant, then there are a lot of trade-offs, and we have to look at the environmental impacts, the ODP, GWP. We have to look at safety, which is paramount. What about the toxicity, claimability, the pressure rating, what are the chances of leakage or things like that. Then thermodynamic cycle efficiency. We all know that the overall, out of the overall life cycle emissions, 80% is attributed to the is the indirect emissions associated with the energy use. So efficiency is important. Cost, of course, is another consideration. Then system design and reliability. So because of the high ambient temperature conditions of our region, it has to sustain the design performance at these elevated temperatures and not break down and react with system components. And unique to our ecosystem, availability is also another critical thing. We have seen with many upcoming refrigerants that the supply chain is not yet there, so people choose what is available to them. Now, in terms of long-term refrigerant options for not-in-kind as well as vapor compression technologies, these are the 5 refrigerants that it boils down to: ammonia, a natural, widely available refrigerant having a proven track record; carbon dioxide, again an excellent environment-friendly refrigerant; hydrocarbons, they have their own flammability issues, but they balance it with the efficiency that they come across with. Water, again, excellent refrigerant. Then for the vapor compression technologies, HFOs and HFO blends, they are the only sustainable option or comparatively better option going forward. This is the safety classification of refrigerants as per IS 16656 and ISO 817. So in terms of toxicity, refrigerants are classified in 2 classes.
Sandeep, you have 1 more minute, please.
Yes, so I think we can skip this. So these are some of the mitigation measures. that can be adopted to address the hazards that come with these natural refrigerants. So yeah, I had a few slides on ICAP. I think Dr. Bhushan has already covered them, so maybe I'll close on this slide, which talks about the way forward for ICAP implementation. So the overarching goal of ICAP is to provide sustainable cooling and thermal comfort for all while ensuring environmental and socio-economic benefits for the society. And one of the stated priority areas to achieve this overarching goal is to promote the development and commercialization of low energy cooling technologies. Now, the challenge here is that the ICAP needs to align with the climate goals, whether it is the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement, or the net zero targets, or the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. And one example could be to incorporate the emission intensity reduction targets within ICAP. And finally, we all understand that implementing these very ambitious national plans will have their own challenges, and that's why clear guidance for states on implementation and financing is important. Financial planning and concrete timelines could also benefit ICAP implementation, and targets and mechanisms for monitoring, verification, and enforcement is equally important. I'll close with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the biggest challenge with India Cooling Action Plan is how do you convert it into state cooling action plan and then city cooling action plan. Cooling action plan has not gone to the state and cities, and therefore the achievement has not been significant. The other issue is that at the temperature of 50 degrees, we saw how vapor compression technology was failing in Delhi. Okay, so I think we also have to look at not only the impact of higher temperature on the upcoming technology, but also on existing technology. These are the kind of experimentation and risk we have to take, because the idea of going with business as usual certainly is far more risky from all perspectives. Now, I'll now request Madhusudan. Madhusudan, again, I'm not going to take too much time introducing him. He's very well known in his sector. He's the CEO and founder of Urja Energy Engineering Services. Madhusudan was someone who first inspired me to start looking at structural cooling almost a decade and a half back. And so nice to see you. And you have 5 to 7 minutes. Quicker the better. Okay, thank you.
Will do my best. Good afternoon, all. And thank you for setting the context, Dr. Chandrabhushan and Sandeep. I'll extend that a bit, sort of context setting, before I talk about what is that I propose. What I've seen is most of the focus, even in this forum, has been around decarbonizing commercial buildings. But I think there is an urgent focus needed on decarbonizing residential buildings. I feel they are more difficult to do because there are too many stakeholders, too many buyers, and everybody wants to offer the lowest common denominator option because that's safer to opt in. Bikega, flat to bik jayega na phir. And if you see the data, and this is again from India Cooling Action Plan, as Dr. Bhushan said, this may be outdated. We're going to have a hockey stick growth in next 3 years, and the residential installed AC capacity is going to be at least 5 to 8 times more than what the commercial cooling capacity. So that itself says we really need to focus that, right? Then I try to, whenever I look at hockey stick, any hockey stick, I'm always suspicious, as to what is behind these numbers. And then I looked at another data set. Might look a little complicated, but what it shows is for countries where cooling degree days, which is typically tropical countries, most cities in India, is about 3,000 cooling degree days. If the per capita income in purchase parity term is less than $10,000, the air conditioning adoption is below 20%, right? But what you'll see is the moment the per capita income goes to $20,000 and above, it hovers between 80 to 100%. So India was around 5,000 USD in 2013. Last year we breached 10,000 USD in PPP terms. And I'm sure in next 5-7 years we're going to breach that $20,000 in PPP terms as per capita income. And that's when you will see, and that's what made me believe in that hockey stick, that is adoption that will happen. And what I believe will start happening, if that's a default requirement, most builders and developers will start offering it as a part of their apartment sale. Okay, and if it is with vapor compression technologies, we can see what will happen. Let's look at the peak loads. Now, peak loads have started moving to later in the night. This is Delhi's on the same day it had hit 50 degrees centigrade. You could see the peak load was at 11 p.m. in the night when it was 35 degrees centigrade, not at 1 or 2 p.m. when it was 45 degrees centigrade. And Delhi is not an anomaly. You look at Bangalore, evening, when it is 31 degrees, peak electricity demand. Kochi, 11 o'clock. Even electricity minister of Kerala had to go and actually appeal that please do not use electricity between 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Right? And this is when it is less than 10% air conditioning adoption. This electricity demand in the night is far more difficult to decarbonize. So, again, some data from IEA, just reinforcing what other speakers have said. We are going to be world's biggest consumer of electricity by, a few years and more, right? So today we are probably less than 10% in terms of what cooling consumes as a percentage of the overall electricity generation, but we'll be in excess of 30% in next 20-25 years, and at peak, it may be more than 50%. So what has all this got to do with natural refrigerants and eco-friendly thermal comfort? Okay. So let's get back to basics to understand how this can be solved and we can have eco-friendly thermal comfort. If you look at it, most of the peak demand, as I said, is in the night, and if you look at the nighttime temperatures, I've taken Jaipur as an example, but it can be in Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, wherever. You will see this is May data this year, right? One of the hottest years, May 6th, 7th, 8th. The nighttime temperatures are only 25 to 30 degrees centigrade. Now, heat load, anybody who knows heat load calculation, you know there is no heat ingress. So if there is no heat ingress, why is there a cooling demand, right? We should not be. And those who have slept outside in open know that you really don't need cooling. खटिया बाहर डाल के सो जाते हो तो आपको पंखा भी नहीं चल चाहिए, तो रात को 4 बजे तो सुबह 4 बजे तो ठंड लगती है, right? So why is that we require? Because the culprit is the accumulated heat in our building structures. And this is not, the top that you see is at 9:30 p.m. where you see the surface temperatures, even the floor which is not directly exposed to the solar radiation is about 35 degrees centigrade. So if you walk into any space that is where surface temperatures are between 35 to 45 degrees centigrade, of course you are going to need air conditioning. You can't escape it. But this doesn't happen in a day. This starts building from end of February, आधा degree, 0.7 degree बढ़ता जाता है. And if you can do something for it not to accumulate and keep flushing it out, then the surface temperatures will never exceed 30 degrees centigrade and you can be comfortable with a fan and natural ventilation, except on those days, maybe a few days when even nighttime temperatures are 37 degrees centigrade. But even on those days, I don't feel, because the ambient temperature has no bearing. What has bearing on your usage of air conditioning is the surface temperatures that you are exposed to inside the space, right? So, how do we do it? Structural cooling, nothing different from radiant cooling that many of you know, but we're just replacing chiller, which is a vapor compression technology, with a low energy system, which is a simple heat sink. The heat sink could be a cooling tower, a multi-stage cooling tower, a lake or a water body, or even a treated wastewater tank, wherever you can dump the heat. There's a project in Delhi where we are dumping that heat in a swimming pool, providing warm pool, not hot pool by the way, warm pool for free. So, this has been done in many commercial buildings. I mean, The oldest building that I know where this has been done is almost 12 years old in Pune, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. But there are many examples. And I'm keen to see how this, when widely adopted in residential building, can significantly reduce our need for more and more power generation capacity. It's unnecessary capacity because we are looking at and dealing with it in a wrong way. Just flush the heat out. Therefore, you don't have to build another 5,000 gigawatt of electric generation capacity, right? Because nighttime, you have to either put expensive storage to serve that, I mean, generated through renewable and put expensive storage, or go back to fossil fuel, right? Far more. So what I propose is, if base installation, if it can be structured cooling, just to reduce the overall load that is there. I mean, this, and it can be easily powered. It's just fans and motor, pump motor and fan motors, easily can be powered by solar photovoltaic plant on a rooftop of even a high rise. So if you take example of, let's say, 300 apartments, assuming 10 tons per apartment, so that's 3,000 tons, right? Even if half of that, I'm wrapping up, half of that can be catered to by structure cooling, it will be great. And it can always be, combined with cooling as a service. And if you can do that, then even that entire equipment, centrally, district cooling, cooling as a service, whatever you call, can centrally be, configured in a way where renewable energy can power that. And during the daytime, thermal storage can be created so that you can completely decarbonize even the residential air conditioning electricity consumption. So that's my thought. Would love to interact during the session and after the session. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we certainly will have discussion on this. I do believe that, again, promotion of these technologies will require strong public policy, municipal bylaws and regulations, and government incentive to kickstart this process. Obviously, there is commercial case, but even with commercial case in early stage development, government support is required, and that's what we should be pushing for. Dr. Prasanna, your presentation, please. He is Chief Technology Officer at ATE Enterprises, very well known. Your presentation, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrabhushan. Honorable moderator, chair of the panel, respected panelists, and everyone. Thank you for delaying your lunch, and thank you for inviting me to talk about this important topic. The stage has been set by everyone, a lot of details. This whole audience is here for a particular reason. We appreciate the problem, and we'll just share what we've been doing in Not-in-Kind Technologies for some time now. And our business models have changed, right from agency business to manufacturing. We had one of the largest number of joint ventures in the world, in India at that time. And since 2005, our MD's vision has been consistent about invent in India and for India. Because once we do it in India, we know we can go abroad because the problems are much more. And for this reason, we got into energy efficient cooling business in 2008, and we've heard about that through our HMX brand. I like this slide by Dr. Stephanie Taylor, and sometimes it's important, while I'm speaking with a lot of HVAC industry, there's also the building industry. The function of the building industry is very important, and what started originally as a protective measure, now we talk about energy efficiency. And COVID and other things have said that there's also a health aspect to this. Not many of us, and especially the HVAC industry, talk about this anymore. There was a surge about talking about HVAC and its impact on occupant health, but it's no longer as high as it used to be. I wonder why. Yeah, and this adds to what Sandeep was talking about. Comfort is more indoor environment quality, and in this new context, we have to think about all technologies from a different lens. This is an old slide, old JLL rule. Most of the people here must know this, that in a commercial establishment, 90% is personnel cost, the operating expenses. 1% is energy. And we are talking about that 1% energy which is going to affect climate change, is creating climate change. But as Sandeep and others said, there are multiple stakeholders here. The occupants are the biggest stakeholders, so we need to take into account them too, you know. So it's not an easy problem. It's not, there are multiple stakeholders. You have the owner of the building, you have the tenant of the building, you have the architect, and energy is last, usually. Yeah. And this is Joseph Allen and Macomber at Harvard. They have a book on this, Healthy Building Makes Economic Sense. Yeah. So quickly about IEC. IEC about we use a cross-flow plate heat exchanger to affect sensible cooling. So temperature drops and enthalpy and wet bulb drops. As Dr. Chandrabhushan so eloquently mentioned, high wet bulb relates to high heat index, feels like, and that is a killer. Yeah? And all this we accomplish with water. All this is not rosy in India because we have a water issue also in India. So I'm not saying that this is an end-all solution, you know. Our innovation, again, indirect evaporative cooling is not new. It was used in the US, in the Midwest, Southwest. It's used in Australia. But after the 70s, there has not been much work. The biggest innovation was in making it cost-effective and adapting to Indian conditions. And this is the Dama that which is being sold under the HMX brand. The unique constraint, lower energy bills, but many things can be solved by also a few higher air changes. Many applications require a few higher air changes. And indirect evaporative cooling seems to be filling that sweet spot. And hence finds a lot of applications in commercial buildings, residential buildings, and a whole lot more in manufacturing that we are not talking about. Yeah? As we consume more, manufacturing has to be much more. And as Vinodji before me talked about it yesterday, we have used the IEC Dama and hybridized it or offered multiple solutions with it to cater to the varying needs of the various industries. Yeah, so right from a basic evaporative cooling solution, two-stage, to a pre-cooling of makeup fresh air for a convocation center like this, as well as now a state-of-the-art IEC-based hybrid, which is finding very nice use in certain applications. Quickly, this is an application Vinod also talked about. Global headquarters of a huge financial company in Bangalore. But why is this interesting beyond the savings and everything? This company came back to me, the infrastructure head came back to me 18 months ago and said, our CO2 level in the building is 950. We would like it down to 550. We find a huge benefit. 550 ppm. Now, that is indoor environment quality, which I don't know how many of us talk about. So, how do we do it in an existing building? Yeah. In this makeup fresh, again, for a retail solution, again, energy savings aside, payback period aside, the big thing is, and Indian studies don't exist, but abroad the studies exist, that if you improve the indoor environment quality, then the retail experience is much better and it's much profitable. Okay? There's a lot of value which is hidden. It is not just in energy savings. You have to tap that value. Yeah? This is a training institute, and this builds on which Dr. Chandrabhushan has been very closely associated. Actually, he drove this, and this is at Nimli in Rajasthan. And this is like the first example. It has shown that performance on tests and knowledge retention for children, especially in children development, is far better if the indoor environment quality is good. Even nighttime indoor air quality in the bedroom is very important for the mental development of the child. And this is not thought about. So I'd like to leave with these thoughts, which will be no doubt covered in the panel discussion. We've been at it for 15 years or 16 years now. What have we learned? You know, we are a small company that started up in this field. It takes time. You have to find a niche. Ideas, everybody in this audience will have an idea. But converting into execution requires a whole host of people working with you. And some of them are across, this audience and the table. Value is most important. We need to find the value. You just cannot say just because I have a clean technology, it's going to work. Because unless it's driven by public policy and mandates. Awareness for a small company like us in this field, we have to not overcome, but we have to retrain a 120-year-old industry since Carrier took over. And there's a whole set of tools to be prepared, there's a whole set of case studies to be prepared, there's simulation tools, there's research, there is, most important, standards and testing. It's an enormous amount of work. And this is what takes time also, So I'd like to leave with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was very closely involved with the entire development of the Nimli Center, which Dr. Prasanna was involved, and for the last 7 years now, we have monitored the performance. I think energy cost is much lower, experience is great, air quality is indoor air quality is excellent. It's something that I would encourage all of you, if you have time, you can go to Alwar. It's a very dry. It has both dry heat and some part of the year where there's high humidity as well. And the system works excellent, even in high humidity heat conditions. It's not that evaporative cooling technology. That's again another fallacy that has gone around, that evaporative cooling technology will not work in India in high humidity conditions. You have to think about hybrid technology to bring down the humidity. But those are cost-effective solutions that are there. And I have been to IITM as well, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. And you have to go and experience structural cooling there. Let me now come to someone who is actually doing it on a grand scale. Okay? And Dr. Sunita Purushottam, the head of sustainability and CSR at Mahindra Life Spaces, will tell you how they are doing it here in Jaipur, right? You have throughout the country and the experience of Mahindra Life Space. Sunita, your presentation, please.
So, I'm going to talk about things that has not been spoken about in the last few days here. It's basically the role of climate responsive design. People have alluded to it. Sandeep referred to it. Madhusudan referred to some part of what I'm going to cover, which is basically the building envelope and how the nighttime temperatures are increasing, are getting retained. Since this is a technical conference, I can give that a technical term. It is called residential envelope transmittance value, which is the net heat gain over the cooling period through the building envelope in dwelling units. So that is RETV. And it is supposed to be modulated by law, and RETV values have to be less than 15. And it is also determined by the climate of a particular location. Typically, with AAC or brick construction, this RETV was in the range of 8. With Maivan and concrete construction, we are unable to get it at that value. All the values are now above 15, and that is worrying because all of us are now moving into flats. And these flats are, apartments that we feel are modern and is very progressive in nature. I'm going to skip all of this. Madhusudan alluded to it in terms of, our growth and how the consumption is increasing. Acharya ji, on the opening day, he referred to consumption. That's what it is about. Of course, we know this, and these numbers are we are going to have new numbers. So, have we created a problem which we are trying to solve? And each of you must introspect that problem that we have created is an opportunity for all of us here. Okay. However, learning to say no is the first step to sustainability, and that's what I'm going to talk about. It is actually climate responsive design. So both it actually helps you become climate resilient and design buildings better. So it provides the comfort and with least amount of energy possible. It's aligned to sun and climate of the region. So that's, sorry, it's going back. So it's least possible air conditioning and artificial lights during the day. It is designed for energy efficiency. So it may make some of you insecure because maybe we will not need that cooling that Chandrabhushan alluded to. I am from Nagpur and we still don't have AC in our house. So let that seep in. We used to sit there, read books during the summer, not venture out in the heat because we were resilient and adaptive. Maybe now we are creating children who are not resilient and adaptive in nature. So I was referring to RETV, which is basically the bare minimum national benchmark for RETV value. It should actually go down to 12 or 10, right? And yeah, so the ECSBC, the Energy Conservation Sustainability Building Code, will probably aim for 12 and lower. Can we design homes with concrete? And that's a deep question to ask. Okay, so this is the annual solar radiation. I'm not going to talk about it, Chandrabhushan alluded to it. And this is how architecture looked like in different parts of the world, right? And in our own country, South India, Rajasthan, and Assam. So they look different, right? But what have we done? Pune, Mumbai, Jaipur, Rajkot, they all look the same. How many of you own apartments with tall glass windows? I need to see a show of hands. ऊपर से नीचे तक खिड़की है कांच की जयपुर में, दिल्ली में, राजस्थान में, सबके घर ऐसे बनते हैं आजकल, करेक्ट? छज्जा नहीं है, छज्जा गायब है क्योंकि डेवलपर को छज्जा डालना ही नहीं है, ठीक है? सो आई एम सेइंग एकदम सीधी बात, घर एक जैसे दिखते हैं एंड ऑल ऑफ देम आर बैड बिल्डिंग्स, क्योंकि यहाँ पे इसको एडिशनल एयर कंडीशनिंग की जरूरत है, बराबर? लेट दैट सीप इन दैट देयर इज नो cultural relevance of our architecture anymore in any of our cities. There is no climate relevance of our architecture in any of our cities, and all of us want to live in these tall flats, apartment complexes. So more glazed area, no proper shading, and we have no natural ventilation. खिड़कियाँ एक साइड में प्रोवाइड करते हैं, आर पार वेंटिलेशन नहीं है, right? And you will feel stuffy because actually there is no vayu prava. There is no ventilation at all. You have to open doors. Maybe neighbor के घर का door open करोगे ना तो आपके घर में ventilation होगा. तो basically it is community development. आजू बाजू वालों के साथ you can do better interactions. Okay, so non-climate responsive building और हम वही खरीद रहे हैं. हमने यहाँ अपार्टमेंट ले ली, हमने वहाँ अपार्टमेंट ले ली, पुराना घर गया, but अपार्टमेंट ले ली और ऐसे बिल्डिंग हम लोग खरीद रहे हैं और हमको पता भी नहीं है कि ये कितनी हमारी सेहत के लिए खराब है. Okay, so materials, which is the building envelope itself, is horrible. Believe me, we have to do something about this. We are running research at the Mahindra Terry Center of Excellence on U value. U value is the thermal transmittance of walling materials. You can test your wall materials and wall samples and wall assemblies at the Mahindra Terry Center of Excellence. Go and look up the research. There are series of materials that we have tested, including expressions and other alternative materials. So imported materials for aesthetics have increased, but one must understand कि India जैसे country में चलना चाहिए क्या? The other is we are becoming very dependent on air conditioning, and we have forgotten that natural ventilation was a thing. So this is all a part of design. And how do you, as a consumer, or a homeowner understand whether it is climate responsive. So one, you may not be able to do the analysis like we do, but you must understand कि कौन से, I mean, keep Vastu aside, but the east and the west facades cannot have tall windows at all. If you need south sun, windows can be located at the south facade of your home, right? So we do a lot of analysis, sun path, wind, shadow, daylight. Orientation is the biggest thing. We look at the site and we tell our architectural team, ऐसा नहीं ऐसा करो. Orientation is the other fight that we have is wall to window ratio. Two of my architects are sitting here. Window का जो sill है उसको हम ऊंचा कर देते हैं और बोलते हैं कि we cannot have the glass facade, you know, large glass facades. It's, आपने राजस्थान में बड़ी windows देखी है? अभी देख रहे हो, पहले नहीं था. Okay, so all of this and also a lot of it is on how the entire you know, your development is. So a lot of it is around the urban heat island. We're talking about SRI paint or China mosaic and so on. Efficient glass, but if you do proper shading, you may define your wall to window ratio. You have horizontal, vertical shading, recessed windows. Keep the heat out, and that is the basic physics of building design, right? And of course, biodiversity protection and landscape, that will reduce your urban heat island effect. Many of these are the green building interventions, but मोटी बात ये है कि we have created a problem which we are trying to solve. This is a zero refrigerant cooling. If 100% is your demand load, if you do passive design, 45% of your energy demand can come down. And now you talk about which is basically your cooling demand. If you have a better home, you can live without ACs. Even with India's climate till 2050, with all the heating that is indicated, one, you will become a resilient human being. Look at your home, look at removing all your AC blankets. This is a thing nowadays, and so on. So that's the only point I wanted to say.
Thank you. Mr. Rupesh, he's director of QI Square Private Limited, and your intervention, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bhushan. I think I don't have the presentation, but I want to take your point ahead. Okay, your presentation last slide said that cooling for everyone, right? I was traveling last month to Bangalore, okay, and while going from airport to the city, the driver asked me, okay, sir, there's a huge problem now for the people working on the road. Okay, the temperature is 45 degrees Celsius. Okay, how do you want them to work during the maybe the peak afternoon? And we don't have the answers. Okay, while we zip around in the air-conditioned cars, okay, there are general people who are suffering. So how can we provide cooling for all, right? Okay. And we are basically forgetting the best natural solution for the same. Okay, we need to grow our green cover. I don't see any focus of each city, okay, having those green cover in their city, okay, which can reduce their urban heat island. Okay, I don't see any focus on having a passive element, okay, included in designs or maybe for the structures. Okay, we are putting up so much of concrete on the surroundings, and which is going to increase the need of our air conditioning, okay, mechanically, right? So I think the focus has to be there on using the natural solutions which are available, okay, focusing on passive components, and then looking for the active components which will give you the energy efficiency. I work in Singapore, okay, where we do the energy efficiency consultancy, and I again everywhere I give this example of Singapore, how they are sort of come out of having a city in a garden concept, right? They wanted to have a more green, which will reduce the heat island effect, which will give them a better kind of a thermal comfort outside, okay, and which will definitely reduce their demand on cooling. They have gone to an extent, where implementing the centralized cooling systems for residential buildings. Okay, their housing board, association, they develop the buildings for the local Singaporeans. Okay, these are small flats. Okay, but now our own, the Cool Conclave partner Daikin, they have received order for almost around 120 buildings, putting either a centralized system for a group of building or even the individual building. What are they achieving? They are achieving almost 30% of energy efficiency directly. Okay, and plus they are also achieving the thermal comfort, because then the machine which are unitary are not creating any heat island, kind of a thing. So implementing a right technology is what we should look for. Okay, we for our residential building, we also have if you say energy consumption, we use energy for AC. We also use energy for hot water. Okay, heat recovery is also which is not which is neglected. I have seen where building design in wooden material, building in radiant, okay, very very effectively and fantastically working in humid environment. Okay, so we need not look for maybe more case studies. Okay, it is proven that the system works. Okay, we just need to implement the technology. So I think all of us should come together and implement the right technology, okay, for whatever our goals. Okay. Maybe as a developer, as a consultant, or as a manufacturer, okay, we should do our bit. Okay, I always say, do it right first time, rather than creating a problem and then looking for solution. Do it right first time. Okay, that's what I would like to emphasize.
Instead of me asking question to the panelists, I would like to open the floor. Okay. Let the audience ask question if there are questions to be asked, and we will take another 15-20 minutes for this discussion with the audience. I think it is fine with all of you.
Hello,
right?
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question with Mr. Madhusudan. You see, you are talking about structure cooling. It's a fantastic, technology and, not its kind. But the challenge here is that in any case, we have to use water to transfer heat further. Correct? So when we talk about, a cooling tower, from which will be dissipating heat. But the challenge which is now we are facing is that the water quality is also going down. Unfortunately, if you find in Rajasthan, in various parts of Rajasthan, we have TDS level which has gone to 2000 to 4000. So you need low TDS water to keep your equipments in a good health. So that is the challenge we are facing. So how do you address that?
So, is it?
Yes.
So I understand most of the places in India we have that issue, but a good example is your Dama heat exchanger is a polymer heat exchanger. So there are polymer heat exchangers that are available now, which can take more aggressive waters. There are these heat exchangers already being used in many industrial environments where food and beverages, where there is a lot more muck in the ETP water, where you are able to use them as heat sinks. So there are so traditional fin and tube with copper and aluminium may not work. Okay. So, but here's a good example of polymer heat exchanger delivering excellent this thing. So we need to start looking at polymer heat exchangers if the water is more aggressive.
Okay. Is there any other question? Okay, please.
We have been. Hello. We have been using in Ahmedabad in our factory structural cooling. We installed it in 2012. There have been issues because those days we were just trying it out. But the TDS is 4000. Yes, water is fine. The way you reject to the environment is water still. But this works.
Yeah, please. Listen, I've been told by the organizer to wrap up the session. I'm really sorry.
I'll be
that,
really quick.
Yeah, so, no, I would encourage you to ask questions. Please go ahead. But we will try and finish it as soon as possible.
I'm very glad we had such a discussion, and Sunita ma'am also said very well that about becoming more resilient at human beings. And since we are talking about not-in-kind technologies, ISHRE is the organization which kind of makes standards on cooling. So as an industry, we still have our standard at 25 degrees Celsius, 50% RH. So we have AEEE, we have so many people here on the stage, when can we have something like some discussion and an adaptive thermal comfort standard, which is like more relevant and which can deliver cooling as a standard also, and to the masses, which is affordable and more sustainable.
Sure. Who wants to take this? Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, thank you for that question. We design our homes for reduced degree discomfort hours, which is as per the IMAC band. So, we'll typically use the climate consultant, find out the thermal comfort band, and as per IMAC, and design to reduce the discomfort hours to fit that band, not the the global comfort band. So if we design it accordingly, it is good for Indian conditions. So that's what we should design.
Short question, please. Yeah.
So I don't know whether it is a question or a comment. I'll just give a brief example of my village. We are having a Haveli which is almost a century old, and I would like to draw the things that we have 4 different walls on our Haveli. It's still existent over there. We have different color glasses with a very small window, and the beauty is that we have more than 40 different smaller rooms inside that Haveli. Even into the last corner of my Haveli, the air ventilation is there, still there. The sun is properly there, and it is purely into zero wastage over there, because the extract is coming out of that part. And in fact, in my entire village, I know that 20 or 25 years ago, the water of that pond is relatively very clear. But now that is going dirty. So are we better earlier, or are we decaying ourselves day by day in terms of net zero in any of the neutrality is there? So, Sunita ma'am, I would like to take...
Yeah, so I think we should go back to our heritage. The theme of this conference was recognizing it and adapt it for modern living. And please keep your Haveli. It's important.
Yeah,
it's a heritage.
it's still there, and
structure.
I will request if you can just come. It is into
Thank you
Karnal,
so
which is
much.
150 kilometers away from Delhi. And I will just add one more thing to that, ma'am. See, मैं एक चीज़ों को इस तरीके से लेता हूँ. एंशियंट भारत में हमारे पास बहुत सारी अच्छी चीज़ें हैं जिनको हम पालन कर सकते हैं एक अच्छा देश, अच्छा नागरिक और अच्छा समाज बनाने के लिए. इन चीज़ों को यदि हम लेके आगे बढ़ेंगे तो चीज़ें अच्छी होंगी. लाइकवाइज मैं एग्जांपल और दूंगा. अभी हमने कुछ दिन पहले अपना एक और मकान बनाया है. उसमें हमने फसाड, जो हमने ग्लास फसाड है, उसके अंदर हमने कर्टेन्स डाले हैं. I was not knowing about that particular, whether it is going to help me or not, but my grandfather told me, let's put this wooden particles inside that bamboo sticks over there, and it is really giving us a value, and we are not using AC into even 48-degree temperature over there as well.
I'll
And that is a recent 10 years old building only.
No, thank you very much for giving it. I really feel sorry because I'm looking at excitement in your voice in terms of what you have achieved, but I'll have to...
And luckily I'm into that field now. I'm a part of Indotech company where we are actually providing this company now.
Okay.
So it's time that life is always 360 degree. Whatever you learn from your ancients, it will come back to this side.
Okay, sure.
So I'm
Thank
into
you.
that area now.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you,
Well,
sir.
good afternoon. Sorry for barging in, but I think looking at the thin population here, this session should have been yesterday. Because the engagement which you have sort of sought
In fact,
for
we
us-
should have been
yeah.
given 1 hour 20 minutes, which was due
Anyway,
to us. The
well,
organizers
we'll
of
try to
that
make the
time.
most of it.
You already taken
I've
that.
been I've been part of the cooling industry for almost 35 years, and possibly now I realize that we still are a lone warrior. I'm no longer directly with that industry, but we have always looked at air conditioning industry or cooling industry with energy, which means power. While we are talking of evaporative cooling and all, still power is the energy. We are talking of now inside changes where water becomes but that's different part. We are talking of air side, not energy side. So thermally activated technologies which have been in vogue, looking at, we talked of Carrier, they invented absorption chillers also. Somehow in India, although there is a huge presence, it is not found even in the Indian Cooling Action Plan. 2018, when it was released in March, I was there. Unfortunately, not so much. So, one thing, while we are comparing figures of millions, I have lived in China for 8 years, and I am living minus 20 years coming back to India, because that's the difference between what China has gone through and what India will go through, hopefully. So, on all counts, energy, because number of people, everything is same. Challenges are same. Maybe we have worse cooling cycle compared to, they have a heating challenge during winters. So coming back to this, is the energy increase which we are talking of, which the J effect, I'm very happy, Madhu, you actually put out, that we don't, unprecedented, we have no idea how much it will go. And knowing how we are governed and how we are city level, state level, we have no clue on planning. Our otherwise urban infrastructure won't be the same as what it is. So it is something which is not in anyone's hand who is sitting here. And we discussed yesterday that district cooling should be looked as district energy flood. How will you, power that tall building or the district cooling?
Can I just say,
coming.
please don't comment, come to the
Yeah,
question.
so I'm coming to the space which thermally activated technology requires absorption chillers. Absorption is very, very few, which has relevant examples running for many years as a part of the overall energy sort of demand side as and having the not-in-kind technology brought in. Otherwise, we are just looking at electricity, which is not going to happen, and we'll put DG sets.
I think
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we take it as a last question, please?
Yeah, my name is Sandeep Kohli. My question is very basic. First of all, the session was very good. Why we call it is not in kind? I think these are the kindest technologies which I've heard in last 3 days. What is the reason of calling it not in kind? And one thing which I would like to share to Sunita ji, that I have a plot. I was thinking of selling it and buying a flat, but after listening to her talk, now I'm thinking I will make it a green building. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Now, not in kind means what you already have. We're looking at something different from there. That was the idea of the panel discussion.
But I think you're
fine.
absolutely right. We need to change that nomenclature.
Yeah, we need to change it. Yeah, thank you very much. The fabulous panel discussion. We have, I think, what he said was 1 hour 20 minutes. I think he needed much more. This really generated a lot of enthusiasm. So thank you very much, and we'll, I think, close this. I don't think I'll summarize any more because there's been too much of discussion already.
Thank you so much, sir. The track name was chilling out, but I'm sure it got heated up. Thank you so much for installing panel discussion. Now I would request you to felicitate Dr. Chandra Bhushan. We did felicitate him professionally, now in a traditional way. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So this will be a non-stop session. We are continuing the last session of this day just after this. So please be seated. Apni seat belt laga lo. We'll be having the fascinating last session. I would request Burma Saab to felicitate all our esteemed panelists over here. To start with, Mr. Madhusudan Rapole. Next, Dr. Prasanna. Dr. Sunita Purushottam. Ma'am received an award yesterday, those who were there for the awards night. You are aware about it. Dr. Sunita Purushottam. हमारे सबके प्यारे रुपेश उमतोल साहब. And last but not the least, who started his presentation, Mr. Sandeep Kachwa. Big round of applause. I would request three most important people in ISHRE, of course after President and the BOG, that is our three vice presidents who are here. I would request my friend Mihir Bhai, Madhukar Saab and Pallabkar Saab. They are vice presidents from West, South and East, handling different domains, helping ISHRE grow. I would request them to felicitate Deepak Barma Saab. Big round of applause. Thank you. Burma Saab. The topic was not in kind, but you were so kind to conduct a very nice session, a panel discussion. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists.